Nox wiped the grease from his calloused hands, squinting at the massive crystalline engine before him. The wreckage had crashed into his repair station 3 hours ago, tearing through the desert sky like a falling star. He should have been terrified. He should have called the authorities. Instead, he grabbed his toolbox. The ship was unlike anything he'd seen in his 15 years as a mechanic organic metal, that pulsed with bioluminescent veins, hull plates that seemed to breathe. And standing in the shadow of her dying vessel was her Alexa. She hadn't told him her name yet, but he'd heard her crew, what remained of them, whisper it with reverence. They called her Calathara, which is translation ship rendered as the crowned one or queen. She stood 7 feet tall, her skin an iridescent shade of deep violet that shifted to silver in the harsh Nevada sunlight. Her eyes were twin galaxies, literally swirling nebulas of purple and gold that seemed to contain entire star systems. She watched him work in complete silence. Nox had tried making conversation at first. "So a quantum drive failure?" he'd asked, pointing at the fractured core. She'd simply tilted her head, those cosmic eyes narrowing with interest. Her attendants had explained in broken English that their queen did not speak to lesser species during official matters. Nox had shrugged and gotten back to work, but he could feel her gaze. It pressed against his back like a physical weight, tracking every movement of his hands as he rerouted the ship's neural pathways, welded the fractured conduits, and recalibrated the gravitational stabilizers. He worked through the afternoon, then into the evening, finally replacing the ship's main power crystal with a jerry-rigged fusion cell. From his own workshop, "This'll get you to the nearest depot," Nox said, climbing down from the engine housing. His shirt was soaked with sweat, his arms aching. "But you'll need to replace the—" He stopped. Alexa had moved closer, close enough that he could see the faint pattern of scales along her jawline, the way her silver hair floated around her head as if gravity held only a casual suggestion. For her, she smelled like ozone and night-blooming flowers. "You repaired a Velthari dreadnought with primitive tools," she said. Her voice was like music played through broken glass, beautiful and dangerous. "Impossible." Nox scratched the back of his neck. "Well, not impossible, just improbable. I had to improvise with the— What is your designation, human?" Nox Dalton." Those galaxy eyes studied him for a long moment. Her attendants had gathered at a respectful distance, watching their queen with barely concealed anxiety. One of them, a shorter alien with forearms and crystalline skin, looked ready to faint. "Nox Dalton," Alexa repeated, tasting each syllable. "You are not afraid of me." It wasn't a question, but Nox answered anyway. "Should I be? I command 17 systems. My fleet could reduce your planet to ash. I have executed rivals with a thought and conquered worlds before breakfast." She stepped closer, and Nox could feel the heat radiating from her skin, not human warmth, but something fiercer, like standing near a star. "Yes, Nox Dalton. You should be afraid." He met her gaze steadily. "You crashed in my yard. Figured you needed help more than I needed fear." Something flickered across her face, surprise. Maybe, or something deeper. She reached out, and Nox forced himself not to flinch as her long fingers touched his cheek. Her hand was warm, her touch surprisingly gentle. "I have traveled 1,000 worlds," Alexa said softly. "I have been offered tribute by emperors, courted by warlords, propositioned by beings of pure energy. But never has anyone looked at me as you do. How's that? Like I am simply someone who needed help." The sun was setting now, painting the desert in shades of amber and crimson. Nox could hear the ship's engines humming back to life, see the relief on the faces of Alexa's crew. They would leave soon, disappear back into the stars, and he would return to his ordinary life of fixing ordinary ships. "Your vessel is ready," Nox said. "You should be able to make it to marry me." Nox blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Marry me, human." Alexa's expression was completely serious, her galaxy eyes burning with an intensity that made Nox's breath catch. "By the laws of my people, I must take a consort who demonstrates qualities of courage, skill, and honor. You possess all three. We just met like 6 hours ago." "Time is irrelevant." She waved a dismissive hand, and Nox noticed that her attendants had dropped to their knees, pressing their foreheads to the ground. "I am Alexa Velthari, Queen of the 17 Systems, Breaker of the Void." conqueror of the Arcturus Nebula. I have chosen you. Nox laughed. He couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation finally caught up with him. Look, Your Majesty, I'm flattered, but I'm just a mechanic from Nevada. I don't know anything about being a consort or whatever. I wouldn't even know where to start. You would start by saying yes. Alexa's expression softened slightly, and for just a moment, Nox glimpsed something vulnerable beneath the regal bearing. I have spent centuries surrounded by those who fear me, worship me, or seek to use me. In 6 hours, you treated me like a person. Do you understand how rare that is? Nox looked at his repair station, the corrugated metal building, the scattered tools, the life he'd built in the middle of nowhere because he preferred machines to people. Then he looked at Alexa, this impossible alien queen who had crashed into his world and somehow seen something in him. Worth claiming. If I say yes, Nox said slowly, do I have to leave Earth? You would divide your time between worlds. I would never cage you, Nox Dalton. I am not seeking a possession. She smiled then, and it transformed her face into something breathtaking. I am seeking a partner. Nox thought about his empty apartment, his routine life, the years stretching ahead with nothing but repairs and solitude. Then he thought about adventure, about impossibility, about a queen who looked at him like he'd hung the stars. Well, he said, extending his grease-stained hand, I guess I should probably get a ring, huh? Alexa took his hand, her grip firm and warm. We shall forge it from the heart of a dying star. Or I could just grab one from the jewelry store in town. She laughed a sound like solar wind through crystal chimes and pulled him closer. Her attendants were chattering in their native language, equal parts shocked and delighted. The ship's engines roared to life, bathing the desert in otherworldly light. Come, Alexa said. We have 17 systems to visit, and you must be properly introduced to your new subjects. Nox grabbed his toolbox. I'm bringing this. Something tells me royal spaceships break down just like everything else. Then you shall be the first royal consort and chief mechanic in the history of the galaxy. As Nox climbed aboard the alien vessel, his hand in Alexa's, he couldn't help but grin. He'd fixed a lot of things in his life, but he'd never expected to fix a queen's loneliness or his own. The ship lifted into the stars, carrying a mechanic and a queen toward their impossible future, and in the desert below, the sunset painted the sand the color of distant galaxies.